deal flow, having an ongoing stream of incoming inquiries from people who want to sell is absolutely important. However, that isn't enough. You've got to be able to identify a good deal. And thirdly, you need to make the deal happen. Otherwise, you've got a beautiful spreadsheet and you can tell everyone how amazing your deal flow is, but you haven't bought a business. So, at the end of the day, that's the only result that we're looking for.
Jonathan, I know you talk a lot about the importance of deal sourcing with your clients. Tell me what's involved.
Sure. So obviously, if you want to buy a business, you've got to find a business to buy. I mean, that's what everyone understands. And when I first started teaching this years ago, the question everyone asked me was, how do you find these businesses to buy? In fact, people still ask me that question now. But I feel that people are a little bit more informed and they realize that there are business brokers out there, which are like estate agents for businesses. Or you can take a different route, which is to go off market. And off market means you go straight to the vendor, the owner of the business, who hasn't advertised it for sale. So it's cold outreach. We don't do cold calling or email blasts or anything like that, but we have different methods of reaching those owners who might be interested in selling and opening up a conversation with them. Now, a lot of buying a business is a numbers game. So the more businesses you speak to, the more deals you will find if, and there's a big if here, you know what you're looking for. So I have encountered 2 people so far who have created incredible deal flow for themselves, over 100 opportunities. So this is 100 businesses approaching them, in one case 130 opportunities, but haven't done a deal. So deal flow is important, but it's not the only thing, because if you don't know how to speak to the owner, if you don't know what to look out for, if you don't know the red flags, green flags, then you could have all the deal flow in the world, but still not buy a business.
I understand that. You talk about 130 opportunities in one case. Where are those opportunities coming from? Are you buying a mailing list of certain types and sizes of business? Are you researching them one by one? What's the process?
You could do both of those things. It depends really how much time you've got. It depends what your resources are. It depends how ambitious you are, because I've got clients who've gone into the double digits now in their acquisitions. They've done more than 10 acquisitions. So individual research, if you like, searching for individual businesses, looking at their websites, looking at company's house, understanding the ownership structure. No one's got time for that if you're ambitious and you want to do more than one deal. Now, my school of thought, my approach to this is that time is too precious. It's a limited commodity. So why don't we go mass market quickly in order to flush out the interested parties? And if we want to go narrow and deep later, we can do that later on. So let me just tell you some of the advantages of having good deal flow. So first of all, you can't do a deal without talking to an owner. So that's the first and very obvious one. But you're very unlikely to buy the first business that you speak to. Very, very unlikely. It's like saying, I'm going to marry the very first woman I speak to. It doesn't work like that. So what we want to do here is we want to speak to lots of owners, because several things happen when we do. If we only spoke to one, we put ourselves in a very vulnerable position of becoming a motivated buyer, because we've only got one person we're speaking to. We have to make this deal work, so we don't have alternatives. As soon as we have alternatives, we become a more relaxed buyer. We have a greater understanding of the market, and we can take our time and we have choices. And that makes us less keen to do that particular deal, which makes us less motivated, which makes us a better negotiator.
If you own a business and you want to grow via acquisition, Mastermind is the group that you should be part of. Information in the description below.
So there's a big difference there.
So what you're saying is, if I've got a choice of 3 businesses in my pipeline, I'm not going to get too excited by one just because I've got it, because I've got 2 in the pipeline.
Yeah. And I'd prefer you to have at least 10 in the pipeline at any time. because then, and deals have a habit of falling over. So if you've got several options and you're running a 3-horse race and one does stumble, then you've still got 2. And interestingly, it's always the one that you think is going to happen the first happens the last. So having these options gives you a greater sense of comparison as well. Now, I always compare this to interviewing. So if you're a business owner and you've interviewed people for a job, you might have a whole day of interviews lined up. You do interview number 1 at 9 a.m. and you think, actually, this person's pretty good. It would be great if I could just offer this person the job, not bother with all the other interviews, and then my day is free and I've got a good person. But you feel a sense of obligation to do the other interviews. So you do interview number 2, you do interview number 3. By the time you get to interview number 4, you've forgotten interview number 1 because number 4 is actually better. And then you get to the end of the day and you've done your 8 or 9 interviews, and you realize that if you hadn't done 8 or 9 interviews, you wouldn't have met person number 8, who actually was the very best fit for the job. And that person number 1, if you'd hired them back at the beginning, you wouldn't have had a good it would not have been a good choice. And it's the same with buying a business. That sense of comparison allows you that the business that looked great at the start isn't so great when you've looked a lot.
This may be a very difficult question to ask, but when do I know I've got deal flow right? Is it if I've got 10, I'm bound to find 1, or are you in fact buying 1 in 100?
Well, I think some people set criteria that are so precise, they're never going to buy a business. And I wonder sometimes if that's subconscious. They become so particular about it has to be within 50 miles of my house. It has to have at least £500,000 of net profit. It has to have at least 10 members of staff. You're not looking for the perfect business. You're looking for a good business. And good businesses will have flaws, and they will have things about them that you don't like, because there is no such thing as a perfect business. And if you're looking for perfection, you'll be looking a very long time. And I think this is what happens when you have people who have incredible deal flow. They've been incredibly good at generating deal flow. They've got 130 options on their spreadsheet, all people who've contacted them, all people who want to sell, but they still haven't done a deal. It's because they don't quite know what they're looking for, or they're looking for something so specific, it's never going to happen.
Yeah. So if I'm shortlisting 130 and I'm not buying, it's either I'm a lousy negotiator, or my list of 130 Absolutely. Doesn't fulfill my criteria.
Yeah. Or you don't know what a deal looks like. And you could have the most amazing deal walking around in front of you, but you just can't spot it. And I think that is also what people can't spot good deals, because they maybe, I don't know, it's a little bit like again, talking to people who own businesses here, you could hire salespeople where one salesperson is making sales all day long, and the person next to them says, oh, no one wants to buy and it's too expensive and no one's in the mood for buying at the moment. And it's the summertime and it's the election and and have all these excuses. You get that with deal makers as well. Some deal makers just buy business to get on with it. And I see this in mastermind all the time. And others just faff around, don't get the deal done.
I get that. I can imagine. I understand that deal flow, if you get it right, means that you don't get emotional about any individual, any one business. But presumably young deal makers early in their deal making career, there must be that sort of excitement about getting the first deal, the second deal. How do you rein that in to make sure they're not making an emotional decision?
Well, my clients run it past me.
Aha, okay.
So I'm the sounding board, if you like, because I think that is important to have someone who, again, has seen hundreds of things to be able to say, look, I know you want it, but surely this is such a huge red flag. You're going to end up with the job. And sometimes people justify it to themselves. They say, oh, but I could just work there for 6 months. I might enjoy it. No, that's the opposite of what we're trying to do. Or they might say, well, the owner has promised me that they'll stay on and run it because there's only like 3 members of staff. Well, yeah, the owners said that. You can't make them though. Oh, sure, you give them a contract, but you still can't make them. What are you going to do? Go around to their house and bundle them into the car and drive them to the office if they don't turn up? Yeah, it's. I think sometimes people talk themselves into bad deals because they haven't got someone to check against.
So your mastermind students have you, but it sounds like if you're going to try and do this on your own without the Dealmakers Academy, you're going to need someone pretty experienced as a sanity check, if you like.
Yeah, I always say buying a business by yourself is so difficult. I don't see anyone do it. I'm massively flattered by the thousands of people who listen to this podcast every single week. But listening to a podcast doesn't give you enough. It gives you ideas and inspiration and motivation, which is absolutely brilliant. But buying a business is 100% practical. And just being the recipient of information isn't enough. It's actually turning that knowledge into action.
Brilliant. So summarize top 3 or 4 points to take away about deal sourcing.
Okay. So deal flow, having an ongoing stream of incoming inquiries from people who want to sell, is absolutely important. However, that isn't enough. You've got to be able to identify a good deal. And thirdly, you need to make the deal happen. Otherwise, you've got a beautiful spreadsheet and you can tell everyone how amazing your deal flow is, but you haven't bought a business. So, at the end of the day, that's the only result that we're looking for.